Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Moscow City Council Public Works Finance Committee meeting for Monday, August 14th, 2017. Joining me on my right is Councilman Walter Steed and Councilor Gina Teruscio on my left. Gary Riedner is representing city staff, and we'll get this thing underway. First thing on the agenda is approval of the Public Works Finance Committee July 24th, 2017 minutes.
And I'm okay with them.
I'm okay. Well. Okay, so we'll approve those. Item number 2 is the disbursement report for July 2017. Gary and Sarah.
Our Assistant Finance Director to present that.
All right. So looking at the CCSR, the major expenditures for July totaled $2,134,024.19. Our largest expenditure is payroll at $1,095,981. And to note that continued increases because summer's in full effect. We have our part-timers at the pool, so our payroll has gone up. Everything else is pretty contractual and straightforward. We did have one large capital outlay, which is our Southwest Sewer Trunk Line payment, and that is $247,687. Everything else is pretty status quo.
Okay. So we can accept that report?
Yeah.
Anything that you see?
I'm fine with that. If I can ask, I don't see any Public Works people here, but Gary, a question.
Yes, sir.
Mentioning that sewer project, 6th Street was opened back up on Friday.
Right.
It was and it was closed this morning. What were they doing this morning?
Raising the manhole covers.
Yeah, exactly. The
Okay,
rain
I
utilities
couldn't
up
see
to
down there
grade.
what they were doing, but
Yep, should be open right away.
okay.
Sign off on this.
All right.
Go ahead, I'll catch it.
I gave it to you. There.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 3 on today's agenda is the to open the budget for fiscal year 2016-17 to make some amendments. Gary's in charge of that.
Thank you, sir. What you have in front of you is both a draft ordinance and a notice of public hearing for the opening of the FY 2017 budget. This is something that is common throughout the state. Idaho law dictates that council must pass a balanced budget every year and that you pass an appropriations ordinance. That appropriations ordinance allows you to spend within funds and certain criteria within that appropriation. If something comes up that was unforeseen and you're spending money that was not appropriated either out of not capital, but fund balance, things like that, or if you receive grants or those sorts of things, in order to spend those or receive them in any one year, you open up the budget and increase your appropriation. Again, it's an appropriation ordinance. It's not something that you have to meet exactly. You just have to have capacity within the amount of appropriation. So it must be passed, the amendment or the open budget ordinance must be passed in the same manner as the regular budget, which is why it will be advertised in public hearing and will be heard on the 21st of August. So if you take a look at the accompanying memo, I want to thank Sarah for putting this together. It's pretty straightforward. Under the general fund, you have $30,005 that were unanticipated. The receipt from Avesta of the LED light rebate and the $20,000 for our flooding issues in the basement, neither of them were anticipated. One's a revenue, of course, and one is an expenditure. We do have capacity under the general fund, so we would not have had to open up the general fund itself to receive these, but since we were doing it all in order to bring more transparency to our process, we decided to go ahead with those as well. Then the street fund, of course, you've got the emergency relief fund funds, $130,140, 22.7 in culvert and ditch repairs, 6th Street repairs in the amount of $40,000. So you can see that those appropriations in the street fund, which is a much more tight fund than the general fund. The general fund usually has excess capacity built into it because it's a much larger fund. The fleet fund, council directed that we move ahead with the purchase of a fire truck this last year. We'll take receipt of that as we indicated in the budget process in February or March of 2018. But in order to get the discount of about $18,000, as I recall, we needed to pay for it up front. So we did. And so you'll see there's an amount in there of $515,000. Also, the roller, the $45,000 Dynapack roller, which was also purchased in FY17, was carried in accumulation, but was not authorized to move ahead for purchase. The reason we were doing this is in the fleet fund, are trying to be a little bit more user-friendly, if you will, and more efficient. So, for instance, the roller was operational last year. They've been nursing it along. It's been set up for replacement for several years. But it made sense that use it until its useful life is over and then go get a new one. We talked about whether we could lease one or whether a purchase was necessary, but what we wanted to do was give fleet the ability to run it until it made no sense anymore and then have the funds capable of going out and buying one. So this is our first opportunity to do that. Worked out very well. Additionally, you have a $20,000 generator, emergency generator for the police department. They have a generator that works sometimes now. During our last blackout, it did not work. So we checked it. It's got a circuit board, all those things. It's been around a long time. It is a natural gas generator. It is time. It's tired, and you've got to have emergency power at your police department. So in spite of the fact we're talking about moving the police department to another facility, you can't have the police department without emergency power. So there is an opportunity that should that building go out of city hands or it made sense, we would be able to salvage that or repurpose that generator if necessary. So that's just some thoughts there. But it was something that, again, we had not looked for. Fleet knew that that generator was on schedule to be replaced. We were hoping we could nurse it along, so it was not appropriated for. So it turns out we weren't able to do that. Then, of course, in Hamilton and capital projects, this reflects the council allowing or directing that we were able to use Hamilton funds for playground equipment. So there's $170,000 that will be transferred from the Hamilton fund into the capital projects fund in order to finance that project for the Indian Hills Park. So with that, that is the open budget process. If we're here to report on it, we will have the public hearing. The direction will be, after the public hearing is closed, that the council consider the ordinance and pass the ordinance so we can get the needed appropriation to finish out the year.
Walter.
Gary, in the packet on the capital projects funds, there's a $170,000 item.
Yes.
Does that duplicate something above, or is that a separate item?
I believe, are you looking at the accounting or the?
No, I'm looking at the
notes?
listing.
This guy here?
It's that 170,000 is the breakout. So when we're pulling the money, we're opening the fund balance in the Hamilton, taking it from the Hamilton,
So that's
putting
the
it
other
into capital
side
projects. Correct.
of the parks
Ledger.
Yep,
Yes.
it is.
Okay.
So we're transferring it out of Hamilton into capital projects for parks.
Same 170, just the other
Yes.
side.
Yep, just moved 4 times.
And to be clear, the net effect of all of these changes, the expenses and the revenues, is $1,142,845, correct?
Yes.
And the math matches up on that, so it's not like the raises for the city council and
Don't go there.
that we're off 66 cents or something anywhere in there.
No, this adds
that someone will object to. Okay. With that, I guess I would recommend that we forward this on to council for further action on August 21st.
Agreed.
Everybody's good for that? That's a regular agenda item.
Yes.
Public hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 4 on today's agenda is the 3rd Street pedestrian bridge refund of donations.
Okay. Thank you. Council at public hearing last Monday pass the FY 2018 Appropriation Ordinance and Budget, which included the construction cost of the 3rd Street multimodal bridge in the amount of $580,000. A question was brought up as to what would happen to the donations, private donations received by the city for construction of the proposed 3rd Street pedestrian bridge. So we were unable to bring that to the council as part of that ordinance because until the council passed that ordinance, we were unable to expense that, if you will. So we're here asking for direction. I've got some numbers for you, and what we would like to do is, if the council approves, that council would authorize that the individual donations be returned to the donors, that be done directly after October 1st, after the new budget year opens. So we have private donations have been received in the amount of $7,955. The total budget that you saw in the budget process for that line item was $14,360, of which the balance, $7,130, is funds that the council appropriated in 2008 for design and construction services. So those funds are city funds and would not be refunded to anyone who would remain in that line item. So we have a total of about, looks to be about 25 donors. We've identified who they are. There are 1 or 2 donors who have passed on, and we will make arrangements to find out who the personal representative or their estate and get notice to them as well. But in essence, we would be returning $7,955 to those donors.
All the money is accounted for with a name. There's not anonymous donors that we have to deal with?
No anonymous.
Okay. Well, it seems like pretty straightforward. Gina?
Where does the $7,130 reside now then? Is that still there, or what do we do with that?
It will stay in the 3rd Street multimodal bridge line item.
Okay.
So if that money isn't expended, the estimate on the bridge, as you know, was $580,000. If there's any overage, it could be used for that.
Okay.
If the balance is not spent, then it'll be returned to the Capital Projects Fund.
Perfect. Okay.
And we don't have to take any action to do that.
To
Expend those funds that were created by a previous council for a ped bridge on the multimodal bridge.
No, they were merely appropriated to that line item. So they're just part of another appropriation ordinance, and they've been carried all these years in accumulation.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess what we want to do is forward this to council so that we can commence with the refunding of this at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Yep.
I would also note that I gave you bad information. It's actually $15,080, not $14,860. So I just gave you a total that was.
He was just a
from
line up on
previous
the
year.
line.
Okay.
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 We can perhaps suggest that anybody that wants to could change that donation to the Blackbird Station to finish that project, maybe.
They could do whatever they wanted. It was
That would be a possible place for those funds to go if they wanted to donate to some worthwhile city project, eh?
Yeah, it was felt because the project is somewhat controversial that the money be returned and donors could determine what they wanted to do with it at that point.
I would suggest we put this on regular agenda.
I would agree with that.
Okay. We will do so. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5 is commercial business single stream curbside recycling. Tim Davis is going to tell us what's going on with that.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, Tim. See ya.
LSI and Moscow Recycling has performed business office recycling service consisting primarily of paper products for many years. The recycling service is operated independent of other City of Moscow recycling programs. Due to the independent nature of this service, LSI operates the service with separate staffing and truck. They currently have 53 businesses and schools participating, 34 of which are on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule 19 of them are on-call services. The current service is costly and inefficient in many ways. In November of 2016, LSI sent notices to their commercial recycling customers that due to the costs and inefficiencies, they were going to discontinue the service effective January 1, 2017. My plan had always been to bring a proposal to City Council to expand the single-stream curbside recycling program to the commercial sector in Moscow once it was established on the residential side. After speaking with the management at LSI, they agreed to postpone the discontinuation of this service until a proposal could be brought before Council for your consideration. And this would have been in front of you much sooner had I not had a couple shoulder surgeries this spring, and LSI had some other issues as well, but here we are. Incorporating the proposed business single-stream recycling program into the existing single-stream residential and multifamily routes will add some efficiencies in terms of time, staff, and equipment. This proposal will require some rerouting by location rather than customer class. Right now we have residential on 1 week and multifamily on alternating weeks. The current residential recycling routes are far more time-consuming presently than the multifamily routes. So the rerouting plan will strive to even the workload from 1 week to the other and combine all three customer classes into 2 separate routes, similar to what we do now. There'll be alternating routes. In the end, there'll be 2 more evenly weighted routes still operating on alternating weeks. All the customers that are affected by any changes will be notified by LSI according to the proposal. And then new recycling schedule calendars will also be developed at that point in time. In your package, you'll see the request for proposal for modification of services that was issued to LSI, as well as the response to the proposal from LSI. The proposed LSI rates to the city to expand the single-stream recycling to commercial customers will be the same cost as residential and multifamily customers. I'll just kind of go through those proposed terms real quick. LSI is asking for $3.10 access fee for each commercial business. If that program grows to over 250 participants, they would ask that access fee increase 15%. And then for every additional 100 participants, they ask for a 15% increase to that access fee. It amounts to about 47 cents per customer. The cart costs are virtually the same. That could fluctuate a few pennies either way, but it's about 57 cents depending on how many carts we end up needing to order. I anticipate having a sign-up period. We'll do a mailer to all our business customers and give them 30 to 40 days, whatever we think is necessary. Try to get a feel for how many carts we're going to need, and then we'll probably order some extras. 58 cents per month for cart maintenance, which is virtually the same as we're paying on the residential side. They are asking for $6,500 in startup costs for routing and software changes. The software that we currently use, the Encore system, the Encore folks will be provided a list from LSI, and they'll go in and get them on their new routes and plug it back into the database, so it should be pretty seamless. We've done this several times in the past. And then $4,000 for the roll cart assembly and distribution. As far as the timeline, if this is approved by council, like I said, we'd anticipate a sign-up period of 30 to 40 days. To determine how many carts we need, we would place the cart order. The carts would be anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks out. The rerouting and routing plan has already kind of started, but that will be an ongoing part of this, and we'll kind of be at the will of Encore when they can do this work. We'll just get plugged into their queue, and when it's our turn, they'll get her done, and away we'll go. And then once the carts show up, we'll get those things distributed. Realistically, we're probably looking at late fall to the first part of the year. Obviously, we'll want to get it going as soon as we can, and we'll make every effort to implement it as soon as we can, if council approves it.
Tim, is there any chance you could use the carts that were the wrong color for the commercial side of things? I think Joe still has those.
If that's something that council wanted to do, I think we could.
Lower the cost?
Why would we want to?
Yeah, it would seem to me that the only difference here is one recycling is residential, one's commercial. I don't think, at least it wouldn't be my recommendation, that you'd confuse that with two different colored carts.
I wouldn't either.
You know, the other thing that we're considering for those carts down the road is a potential yard waste collection system, and if we were to do that, that would kind of rule that out.
Yeah, well, let's be consistent then.
Yeah.
And the way the RFP was wrote as well was to use the same carts as we currently use, and they're interchangeable. It basically becomes one system, one community system. Everybody's using the same carts, and I think that'd be a cleaner way to do it.
I think the likelihood is low that the wrong color will be ordered a second time.
I think it's
Certainly less
extremely low.
I would suggest a written order and a written confirmation
Yeah,
of
yeah.
what they understand they're
Eyes on
ordering.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I may? Tim, if I were a small business owner in Moscow and I've got single stream at my house, when I go to my business and set this up, it's going to look the same. I'm just putting stuff out of the business in on whatever the schedule is, and I'm putting stuff into the house. What we take in each will be identical.
Exactly, yeah. It'll be identical to the current system.
Okay, we're not going to get cute and take glass if the business isn't not taking it
No.
home or anything like
No.
that. Okay.
That will not happen.
No confusion, or very little confusion.
No, it'll operate essentially exactly the same way as a residential does. The only exception that I would see is businesses are going to, and especially schools, some of the larger schools, are going to have the need for multiple carts. Right now, a resident's entitled to one cart at that cost, and that's why we put in I put some prices in the fee resolution, not to be presumptive, but so we don't have to have another public hearing on it. But there'll be a $4.90 base fee, which is what every resident pays within their garbage service rates, and what every multifamily unit pays for the same service. So if a business needs multiple carts, they will have a base fee of $4.90 and $4.90 for each additional cart that they need for that service.
And this is already
It will
built
be
into
in
the fee, built
It
in
will
the
be in the new fee resolution coming
resolution
forward.
We're getting
Presuming,
close to seeing.
You'll see it on the 21st in a public hearing. And these fees are included in that.
Cool.
Cool beans.
I think we should move ahead and put this on the regular agenda and,
Agreed.
As a way to advertise it.
yeah, exactly.
thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Item number 6 on today's agenda is master service agreement with Z Engineers. Tyler Palmer's in charge of that, or someone in his stead, I suppose.
Tyler Palmer's not here. I will attempt to cover for him. As you remember, within the last, I can't remember if it was the last council meeting or the meeting before, council approved a SCADA upgrade for Strom Electric that we were happy to see was over $100,000 under engineer's estimates for our new SCADA system. That's supervisory control and data acquisition and telemetry system. So the electrical part of it, getting things ready to go, getting the infrastructure set up is a Strom Electric issue. Z Engineers will be doing the engineering for that and actual system control programming. So Z Engineers have been working with Public Works for a while, and they're the ones they've been selected to proceed with this. So this is the first task order under that master agreement. So we're asking that council approve the master agreement and ability to move forward with task orders as they come forward. We've seen this occur in a couple of different ways. Council authorized task orders to be pursued on a couple of other projects, which has worked very well. As they're done in phases, engineering works on them. Perhaps the task order is adjusted, and as long as it's under the master services agreement and previous authorization has been made, then they'll recommend, it'll come to my office, I'll review it, approve it, and then the task order is executed.
It doesn't have to come to council.
Exactly.
So that, if I may, so that's why the task order is not part of the action, recommended action?
Exactly.
You're just showing it to us?
Yeah, the master services agreement includes...
It's what we're approving.
Exactly.
And the task order is just being shown to us that it's fixing to go out.
Exactly.
I would say we should recommend approval of the master services agreement with Z Engineers and put that on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Right on.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is Indian Hills Park Playground Slab, and David Schutt's going to tell us what's going on with that park construction.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. So this is the Indian Hills Park Slab project. This is, I guess I would term the second phase of the project. First phase was to get the playgrounds ordered and the tile safe to surfacing. The next phase is to get concrete in there, so we've got something to put the playground on.
Thank you.
Just a little history here. City Council on June 19th of this year approved the purchase of the playground equipment and safety tile surfacing. At that same meeting, it was also approved to transfer Hamilton funds to the park's capital projects. As I mentioned, the next step in the project is to get concrete. This will be for the pad of concrete under the playground as well as the accessible path to the playground. City issued a solicitation of bids to 4 concrete contractors on August 1 with the due date that Friday, August 4th. We did get one semi-formal bid. It was received from McCall's Classic Construction in the amount of $68,207.50. Little sticker shock here, and put us a little over budget for the project. So our engineering department, after some discussions, talked to the contractor, and there was a misunderstanding of the general scope of the project, and they resubmitted their quote at $61,907. The general scope was they thought the pad had to have a brushed finish on the concrete, similar to a sidewalk. That's not the case. They can use a power trowel. What that means is about a half a week's worth of work. They could do it in one pour, the pad, rather than multiple pours, because you can only reach so far with the broom. So that was the misunderstanding that we had had.
The pad will be covered by tile, won't it?
Yes, correct. Yeah, the big thing with the pad
But
is...
the sidewalk will be brushed.
Yes, correct. The big thing with the pad, the most important thing is getting the about a % slope to get it to drain. So between the tile
Safety tile, not ceramic tile.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Playground tiles.
Playground tiles. So this is the budget for the project, $140,000 with Hamilton. We had the Bill Parks donation, the amount of $25,000. The expenditures are on the right. Playground was about $98,000. Concrete's about $62,000. Being the first playground we've installed in-house, we've got to get some different tools for staff so they can cut through the concrete to get poles mounted, a bandsaw for the tile that we can have on site. So we're anticipating about $3,500 for that. So we still have a remaining balance of $1,700. So our staff recommendation is to recommend approval of the revised semi-formal bid with McCall's Classic Construction for the Indian Hills Park, not to exceed $61,907.50. I also took the liberty of putting a couple of before and after pictures here of some of the rough grading staff's been doing in-house. The picture on the left is the before. There's a crown of the hill. We had to kind of flatten that out and bring it down a couple feet. The accessible path will need to be ADA compliant, so we need to hit a 5% slope coming up to the top of the hill. So it's taken a little bit of grading, and staff's been doing a nice job with that. So be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, if you don't mind, drop back a couple of slides. Okay, that one, roll, nope, that one.
Okay.
Now, Gary, we heard a $170,000 number on the revised budget a while ago. Explain the difference?
I wish I could remember why it's $165,000 instead of $170,000. I believe It had to do with contingency because we weren't sure about the amount of work that was going to have to be done for the
Is that right?
problematic topography, if my recollection is correct. Is that correct, David?
So did the 170 include the Bill Parks money?
No, the 170 was transfer from Hamilton
So
funds.
we have
into that project.
195.
Yes.
195. So,
If the funds from Hamilton are not fully expended on this project, they will be carried in the Parks Capital Fund to only be applied toward future projects.
Similar projects.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll follow council directive on that, and we will account exactly how much was spent, how much will be carried forward for future projects.
but would you agree that it appears we have 195 available
Yes.
from Hamilton funds and from Bill Parks? So the good news is we're not upside down.
Yeah, and actually, that's the really good news is that the topography issues out there, as David indicated, you can't exceed a 5% slope for the ADA accessible sidewalks. So with the work that staff has done in-house, they've been able to deal with that topography, and they're able to come in with a $62,000 Pathways Slab project. So again, those funds, any excess funds will be carried over. The Bill Parks funds will be fully expended, and it appears that around $140,000 of Hamilton and the balance of Hamilton will be maintained for future playground construction.
And one last thing, if I may, the sidewalk is 8 feet wide, so you can drive a truck up it,
Correct.
and that's why it's 6 inches thick.
Yes, reinforced concrete, 6 inches thick, for maintenance staff to get up there, trash cans, restrooms, eventually when that's built, as the budget allows.
Okay.
I would think we should recommend approval of this bid for McCall Classic Construction and put that on consent agenda for August 21st.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. That's the last item on today's Public Works Finance Committee agenda, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn, unless Kevin Lilly would like to speak.
Hold on.
In that case, we'll keep the meeting open indefinitely.
Thank you. I received a somewhat frantic phone call from Mr. Tyler Palmer, who was on the agenda earlier.
It's already been approved.
Thank you. My work here is done.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you.
Carry on.
Good line. May everything else go that well today.
Yeah. I expected something,
I did too.
epic there.
Hashtag
And it was
road
was already
projects are
covered. Yeah. Okay, now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
We're out of here.